Hello. It's Thursday, so I'll be reading from Sai Charitra Amrut, uh, and this is the chapter 7. So, the heading of the chapter is What was Sai Baba? Before that, we'll say Om Sai Ram, and hope Sai forgives me if I make any mistakes. And there we go. So, what was Sai Baba? My obeisance to Sri Ganesh, to Sri Saraswati and Sri Guru Maharaj, to the family deity, to Sri Ram, Sita Ramchandra, my most humble obeisance. I bow in reverence to the most venerable Guru Sri Sainath. Now let us recall to our minds the connection of the previous story. How Baba was fond of renovating old temples, how he would exert himself for the benefit of others, how he would protect his devotees, taking upon himself their sorrows and sufferings and wearing away his body in their cause. How he practiced Khandana Yoga, Dhotipati along with Samadhi, sometimes severing away from his body, hands, legs, and the head, and sometimes joining them together as before. If considered a Hindu, he looked like a Muslim, and if a Muslim, he exhibited all the qualities of a good Hindu. Who, even with all his proficiency and learning, can describe such an extraordinary avatar? No one could trace in the least whether he was a Hindu or Muslim, for his conduct towards both of these was always the same. Ram Navami is really a Hindu festival, but he himself got it celebrated. He would have the cradle tied in the Sabha Mandap and have the Katha Kirtan performed. In the square in the front would be the cradle put up. He would have Ram Kirtan performed. On the same night, he would also give permission to the Muslims to take out the sandal procession. Collecting together as many Muslims as possible, the sandal procession would be taken out ceremoniously. Thus, he got both the festivals celebrated equally well with great joy. As the Ram Navami festival came around, he would be greatly interested in arranging wrestling events. He would be delighted in giving away horses, todas, and turbans as prizes. When the festival of Gokul Ashtami came, he would get Gokul Kala performed. Similarly, when Eid came, the Muslims were not prohibited from doing their namaz. Once, as a festival of Muharram approached, some Muslims came to the mosque proposing that a taja or a tabut be made and be taken in procession through the village. On being permitted to do so, the taja was got ready and kept for 4 days. On the fifth day, it was taken without his feeling any pleasure or pain. If a Muslim, his ears were pierced, but if a Hindu, his circumcision proved it to be otherwise. Neither a Hindu nor a Muslim. Such was the Sai, the very incarnation of sanctity. If he is called a Hindu, he always lived in the mosque. If he is called a Muslim, the fire burns day and night in the mosque. In the mosque, there was grinding in the Quran, in the mosque too, resounding the bells, the conch, and also in that mosque there was offering of rice in the holy fire. What kind of a Muslim was this? In the mosque, the bhajan went on all the time, and the distribution of food to the people also went on in the mosque. Again, the Hindus worshipped his feet, offered oblations to him in the mosque. How can he be a Muslim? If a Muslim, how was he worshipped by the best among the Brahmins and the Agnihotri, prostrated before him, giving up their pride in their sovale? So the people wondered in their minds. Those who came to find out for themselves behaved in the same manner too. After having his darshan, fell silent. Indeed, he who takes refuge in Hari, that's God, forever, how can he be called a Muslim or a Hindu? He may even be a Shudra or the lowest of amongst the Shudras, or even without a caste. His caste is not all the criterion or standard for judging him. He who has no bodily conceit and treats all the varnas among the Hindus or the Muslims as equal, does not differentiate between the castes. Eating in the company of fakirs, he would eat meat, or if occasion required it, would also eat fish. But even there, should a dog put his mouth to the food, he did not run away in disgust. A peasant always stores in up in large bundles the crop of the current year, so that if there be a shortage of grain next year, it could be made to use up for the deficiency. Similarly, Baba always had in a store of a bag of wheat. For grinding, there was a quern in the moss. There was also a scuttle basket for sifting the corn. Nothing was wanting for carrying on the business of life. In the portico, there was a beautiful, proper Tulsi Brindavan. In the same place, there was also a wooden chariot engraved with auspicious sign. Sorry. Some merit must have been accumulated by us in the previous births that we have met such a saint, a God incarnate. Hold him firmly in the casket of your heart so that you will not lose him until you die. It must be by some good fortune earned the past births that we, thus drawn to his feet, have brought us peace of mind and freedom from worldly cares. How great the prosperity and happiness I may enjoy in the days to come, this happiness in the company of Sri Sainath or Sri Sai Samartha, which with which I am blessed, will never come back again. Self-absorbed, self-rejoicing, self-absorbed as Sai is, how can I describe his marvelous ways adequately? Whoever remains absorbed at his feet is confirmed in his faith by Sai. Ascetics with the sannyasin staff and the deer skin, those residing at holy places of pilgrimage like Haridwar, religious mendicants, sannyasins, those who have renounced the world, the udasis, and many such came to Baba. Baba would talk and laugh and move freely with them. The words Allah Malik were constantly on his lips. He disliked arguments and unprofitable wranglings. His staff was always kept at hand. By disposition as an ascetic, he was tranquil and had conquered the senses and the mind. From his speech flowed perfect Vedanta. Till the end, nobody could gauge Baba's true nature. Be he a king or a beggar, they receive equal treatment in all matters. For both a rich man and a pauper, the measure was the same. Somebody's good, somebody's deeds, good or bad, or his innermost secrets, were all known to him. He used to astonish the devotees by giving a sign or an indication of them. He was a reservoir of knowledge and wisdom under the guise of feigned ignorance. To exert himself for honor and recognition in the world was too irksome for him. Such was the disposition of Sai. Sorry. Though his frame was human, his deeds matched those of gods. In being unexcelled, it was people's faith that he was God incarnate in Shirdi. Oh, for the miracles of Baba, how much can I, a lowly person, describe them? Innumerable were the renovations that Baba got done to the idols and the temples of God. In Shirdi, the condition of Shani, Ganpati, Shankar Parvati, Gram Devi, and the Maruti temples were also improved at the hands of Tatya Patil. The money that Baba accepted from the people under the guise of Dakshina was in part given away for charitable works and in part just given away to people. To some 30 rupees, to some others 10, 15, 50 rupees, as and to whom it pleased him, were daily distributed with great enthusiasm. All this money came from charity. Those who received it also believed it to be so. And even Baba wished that it should be expended for a good cause. And thus many became healthy and robust by his mere darshan. Some changed their wicked ways and became good. Some were cured of their leprosy. So many enjoyed weal. Without the medicated collyrium or a herbal remedy, so many sightless regained their sight. The lame regained power in their legs just by falling at his feet. Limitless was Baba's power and greatness which no one could fathom. People from all the four directions started coming to Shirdi in multitudes for his darshan. He would always be sitting at the same place near the Dhuni, absorbed in meditation after his morning ablutions. Sometimes after a bath, or sometimes without having one, a nice white turban on the head, he would wear a clean dhoti around his waist and he would don a long shirt. Such was his dress in the beginning. He used to administer indigenous medicines in the village. By observing the symptoms, he gave medicines and had a good deal of success, so he became a famous Hakim. Hakim is a Muslim name or for a mendicant or one who, like a doctor. Once a devotee had red inflamed eyes which appeared as red balls due to the swelling. Both the eyeballs were bloodshot. No doctor was locally available in Shirdi. The simple, trusting devotee showed his eyes to Baba. At once, Baba got some biba seed and crushed and made it into balls. For such an ailment, some will apply surma, which is like coal. Yeah. Some may put cotton in soaked in cow's milk, or some others may use cooling camphor tablets or collyrium. But Baba's remedy was most unusual. He picked up the balls one at a time in his own hands, rammed it into each of the eyes, bandaging finally with a piece of cloth. Next day, the bandage was removed from the eyes and water was poured over them in continuous stream. The swelling had completely subsided and the eyeballs had become clear and normal. Such a delicate organ like the eye, but even Baba's seeds caused no burning or pain. In fact, they cured the eye ailment absolutely. Many are such experiences. Baba knew dhoti poti, which is a hatha yoga practice. Without anybody's knowledge, he would go to some secluded spot, take a bath, and bring out his intestines through his mouth. He would then wash them and hang them up to dry. Equidistant as well as from the mosque was a banyan tree, and beyond this tree was another well. To this latter, he used to go every 2 days. In the scorching heat at high noon, seeing that no one was around, he would draw water from the well, wash his mouth, face, etc. And on one such occasion, he was sitting down to his bath. He hurriedly brought out his intestines and began washing them at that place. When a goat is killed, its intestines are turned inside out and washed clean, and then put, fold upon fold to dry. Similarly, he took out his intestines, turning them inside out, cleaned them properly, and then spread them out on the guava tree to the consternation of the people around. Even now, there are people alive in Shirdi who would have seen Baba in this condition with their own eyes. Well, now you wouldn't have because it's more than 100 years. So, but when Himmat Pant uh, wrote this book, yes, but there were some people alive. who would say that he was a unique saint. You know why he did this? Because he was absorbing all the karma of the people when he was giving them blessings, curing the disease, and all. Because the diseases were coming because of the person's karma, but Baba saw them, so he was absorbing the karma, and all of them went into his intestines. And to remove it, because he cleaned his intestine. uh, Sometimes he would practice Khandana yoga, separating hands, legs, etc. from the trunk, and these parts of the body would be seen fallen off at different places in the mosque. And when people in large numbers came running to see the shocking spectacle of his body thus severed into parts, what they always saw was Baba whole and in one piece. Once a spectator was terrified on seeing such a scene and thought that some wicked person must have killed Baba and committed such an atrocity. At the four corners of the mosque, parts of the bodies would be seen scattered at different places. It was the midnight hour and not a soul was around. He became greatly worried. If he were to go and tell anybody, he he would himself get implicated. This was his difficulty. So he went and sat outside, and that it would be some yogic practice of sai that he would not even dream, did not even dream. The sight of the mutilated body struck terror in his heart. He wanted so much to inform somebody of what he had seen, but the fear that being the first informer, he himself would be accused of that crime prevented him from telling anyone. Doubts and fears crowded his mind, so once again at dawn, he went to see and he was quite astonished. What he had seen earlier had vanished completely, and Baba sat in his usual place, hale and hearty. He began to wonder if this was a dream. These yogic practices of Dhotipati and Khandana yoga were practiced by Baba since childhood, but nobody could comprehend the extent of his yogic powers and the mysterious behavior consequent upon it. One thing about in India is, if you see a dead body and if you're the first person who reports it, the cops are going to ask you the question. They're going to hold you responsible. Unfortunately, because this is still now. I don't know why. Yeah. Never did he touch even a farthing of anyone. His fame, such as a physician, rested only on his success of effecting a cure. He nursed the poor and the weak back to health, and he became a renowned Hakim in that district. But this Hakim lived only for the benefit of others. About his own profit, he was most disinterested, and to achieve the good of others, he would bear intolerable pain and suffering. In this context, I shall also narrate an extraordinary incident for the benefit of the listeners, which will bring out Baba's compassion and all pervasiveness. In the year 1910, on Dhanteras Day, on the eve of Diwali, the festival of lights, Baba was sitting near the dhuni putting of wood into the fire in a casual manner. The fire in the dhuni was raging, and there sat Baba, his hand thrust in the fire, quite oblivious and unconcerned about it. The hand was naturally scorched quite severely. Madhav, his attendant, noticed it at once. Madhav Deshpande, who was nearby, noticed it too. Madhav Rao Deshpande also noticed and ran instantly. He squatted at the back and, putting his hands tightly around Baba's waist, pulled him back, exclaiming, "Alas, Baba, what have you done?" As he said so, Baba at once came back to the waking state from the superconsciousness and said, "Oh Shama, you know, a child slipped from its mother's arms suddenly and fell into the smith's forge. Hearing her husband's call out for her, the smith's wife began to blow the bellows vigorously out of fear while holding the child in her armpit all the while. While doing so inadvertently, she forgot the child in the armpit for a moment, and the restless, overactive child slipped from there. But Shama, no sooner did she fall, I picked her up. As I was picking her up, this is what happened. Let the hand be scorched, but at least the child's life is safe, and the child is safe. How how could the hand be now treated, and by whom? Wondered Madhavrao. He decided to write a letter to Chandorkar. So he wrote a detailed letter, and Chandorkar came to Shirdi at once, bringing with him Paramananda, a well-known doctor, equipped with a variety of medicines to soothe the burning pain. And accompanied by Paramanand, Nana Sahib came and stood before Baba. Making obeisance to Baba, he made the customary enquiries after his well-being, and then disclosed the purpose of his visit, requesting him to show his sorry, requesting him to show his injured hand. Already from uh, the day the hand was burned, Bhagoji Shinde was massaging it with ghee and covering it with a leaf and was bandaging it tightly every day. To take the bandages out, to have a proper look at the hand and show it to Paramananda, and so the proper medication would begin and Baba would get relief. Such was the good intention in Nana's mind, with which he entreated Baba in various ways. Even Parmanand made many attempts to induce Baba to take off the bandages so he could see for himself the condition of the hand. But Baba kept on postponing from day to day, saying all the while that Allah is our Vaidya. So he never gave him his hand to see and had no regrets about it. Well, Baba was Allah himself, so yeah. Uh, I mean, he was Avatar himself, so and he can heal himself. That's the body we are talking about. Uh, so yeah, the medicine that Parmanand had brought with him never saw the light of day in Shirdi. It was destined that he should experience the joy of Sai's darshan on account of it. Bhagoji alone had the privilege of serving him thus every day. So Bhagoji alone would massage his hand. As a result, the hand healed in course of time. All were relieved and happy. Though the hand healed in this way, no one knows what insanity it could be that made Baba go through the process of bandaging, massaging, and so on every day at the usual time for it approached in the morning. Even without any pain or injury, it was unnecessarily tended with great care regularly, being given a massage of ghee where no wound or injury remained. And this continued to the end. Himself a Siddha, Sai did not need the service from Bhagoji, but out of his intense desire for the welfare of his devotees, he got Bhagoji to tend it regularly. Basically, it was Bhagoji's good luck. Yeah. As a result of his great sins of his past, Bhagoji was afflicted with leprosy. But great indeed was his good fortune that he had the privilege of Sai's company. As Sai set out on his daily round to the Lendi, Bhagoji would be his umbrella bearer. His body was full of bleeding sores, yet he was the foremost among the attendants. Normally, people would run away from a person with leprosy. Every day in the morning, Baba sat comfortably, leaning against a pillar near the dhuni. Bhagya, that's Bhagoji, would present himself for his service. Removing the bandages from the hands and the legs, he would massage the muscles of these limbs and would rub ghee into them. Such was the service Bhagya rendered him. A great sinner from previous birth, with a body festered with bleeding leprosy, severely affected that Bhagya was, he was yet a great devotee of Baba. The fingers and the toes had fallen off due to leprosy. The whole body with its stink was repulsive. Such were the grave misfortunes of him, whose great fortune was the great happiness of serving Baba. Oh, how can I describe to the listeners of the marvelous Leelas of Baba? Once the epidemic of plague broke out in the village. Just listen to the miracle that took place. Ah, if it was a normal person like you and I, do you think you would allow your wounded hand be tended by a person with leprosy? No, you would go away and forget about him tending to your hand. Would you let him even stand next to you? Like, because he would be smelling full of the sores. It was great Baba. Well, he was out there, yeah. He was teaching us something. He's always teaching us. Dada Sahib Kharbade had a very young son who was at Shirdi with his mother, enjoying the great happiness of Baba's company. The boy was very small. Moreover, he had a very burning fever. He was burning with high fever, which seemed to break the mother's heart. She grew very restless. As her home was in Amravati, she thought she should go back thither. So, finding a suitable opportunity in evening, she came to take Baba's permission. During his evening round, as Baba came near the Vada, the lady came and clasped his feet, relating to him what had happened. As it was, the women are very nervous by nature, and then this child shivering would not stop. Moreover, there was a fear of the dreaded plague. She kept on harping on what had happened. Gently, Baba said, "The sky is overcast, but it'll rain. Bring forth the harvest, and the clouds will all melt. Why be afraid?" So saying, he lifted his kafni up to his waist, showing the inflamed booboos to everyone. The size of hen's egg, four inflamed booboos, like boils, could be seen spread in four directions. "See, I have taken upon myself all your suffering." Seeing this extraordinary divine act, people were amazed. Oh, how these saints take upon themselves the innumerable sufferings of their devotees. They have a heart softer than wax, as if it were a lump of butter. Their love for the devotees is truly selfless, for the devotees alone are the kith and kin. Once it so happened that Nana Sahib left uh, Nandurbar to go to Pandharpur. Nana was very fortunate indeed. His devotion and service to Baba seemed to have borne fruit, and he attained Vaikunta, the abode of Lord Vishnu, on this earth itself, for he was appointed Mamlatdar to Pandharpur. Sorry. On receiving the order at Nandurbar, he was required to leave as soon as possible, as early as possible. So he immediately made preparations to leave with keen desire to have Baba's darshan. He decided to go to Shirdi with his entire family, for Shirdi was to him Pandharpur itself. He first wanted to make obeisance to Baba. However, no letter was sent to anyone at Shirdi, nor had any message or news preceded his arrival. Packing all his luggage, he hurriedly boarded the train. No one would have known that Nana had started from Nandurbar in this hurried manner. But Sai, whose eyes were everywhere, he knew everything. How wouldn't he know? Yeah. Nana had started speedily and may have just reached the border of Nimgaon when a miracle took place in Shirdi. Listen to it. Baba was in the mosque talking to Malsapati, Appa, Shinde, Kashiram, and some other devotees. Suddenly he said, "Come, all four of us, sing bhajan together. The portals of the temple at Pandharpur have opened. Let us go on singing a bhajan merrily." Sai, who knew everything, past, present, and future, had known about Nana's arrival, and when Nana reached the stream of at the border, at the village border, Baba suddenly showed great enthusiasm to singing the bhajan. To Pandharpur I go, there alone do I stay, there alone do I stay, in that abode of my Lord. I wish I knew the song, but this is a translated version, so I don't know the original version. I think it should be uh, Chalala me Pandharpurla Chala. Uh, I wish I knew. Yeah, I should see the original book. Baba was singing the bhajan himself, and the devotees sitting around repeated the refrain. All were overcome by the feeling of love and devotion to Vithoba of Pandari. And then Nana arrives quite suddenly. He, with his family, bowed at Baba's feet, saying, "Maharaj, please be with us as we proceed to Pandharpur. Remain there at your leisure." But the request was hardly necessary. People told him about Baba's enthusiasm to go to Pandharpur and that bhajan it inspired. In his heart, Nana was wonderstruck. Baba's Leela had astonished him absolutely. He was choked with emotion as he placed his head on Baba's feet. After receiving Udi and Prasad with Baba's blessings, Chandorkar took Baba's leave to go to Pandharpur. And now, if I go narrating all these stories, the book will become too expansive. Hence, I shall end the subject of Baba's Leelas for relieving the suffering of others. Let us now conclude this chapter, for there is no end to Baba's stories. In the next chapter, I shall narrate some miscellaneous stories for my own benefit. Oh, for this self conceit of mine, which try as I may, I am not able to overcome. Yet who is this I? I know not for certain. Really, it is Sai himself who will narrate his own story. He will explain the importance of this human birth and describe his routine of collecting alms, the single minded devotion of Baijabai, also known about his manner of having his meals. Listen also to how Baba used to sleep in the mosque with Malsapati and with Tatya Kote Patil. Himmat Pan submits totally to Sai, regards himself but a slipper on the feet of Sai devotees. To him, Sai's word is the only truth, the only standard. Thus, the narration of Sai's story has come so far. Will be to all. Here ends the 7th chapter of Sri Sai Samartha Satcharitak, called Narration of Various Tales, as inspired by saints and devotees, and the virtuous, composed by his devotee Himmat Pan. Om Shri Sai Ram. See you guys next time.